It's going to go through Malwarebytes OneView and the products that we have on offer under the console, the MSP console. So let me just start the slides. So just quickly, I want to go over where could you review Malwarebytes. So these are some recommended places if you wanted to have something that was peer reviewed by IT service professionals and MSPs alike. I would definitely check out G2, also software reviews, the emotional footprint. These reports I can give to you as well, online or by PDF, and also the Gartner Insights Customer Choice Awards for 2020. So we are ranked by IT service professionals, MSPs, as number one provider for endpoint protection. Also Spiceworks as well. Another big thing here is the MRG IFITAS certification. They're a huge AV testing body, and we are ranked number one. That works really well. So if we move on through, what do we have within the offering? So within the cloud platform OneView, this is the place where you could administer all of your sites, deploy your agents, manage your policies, and it's all about automating as much of this as possible and integrating that as well. So also we've just built some integrations with Rmms and PSA providers. So for instance, ConnectWise, so you could automate and manage the deployment through Automate, and you can also set up ticketing and billing information through ConnectWise's PSA element manage. We're also building the Datto and the Kaseya integrations as we speak, and there are many more on the roadmap. So OneView is a multi-tenanted console that ties into Malwarebytes' Nebula cloud platform that enables you to be able to also manage individual sites as well. So think of OneView as the top layer of management and Nebula as the secondary layer of management to administer each of those sites in more detail if needed. So within the product set, we've got Malwarebytes Instant Response. This does two things really, really well. It's going to identify dormant viruses, by family association, by looking at either the signatured or the signatureless, because as we know, malware is polymorphic and it changes. What we do is we look at characteristics of virus families that we can identify certain traits, and we can associate it with that and just kind of block it, stopping it from coming in. So we block what we know is bad. We block what we know is bad, and we block dormant viruses, and we also clean up. We can clean up after a ransomware attack. Those are the two things that Instant Response can do really, really well. And then what we've got, Malwarebytes Endpoint Protection. So this has 9 layers of protection. It's a fully fledged endpoint protection product, and it can replace your existing AV or work alongside it. It has several advanced next generation capabilities that I'll take you through in a minute. Also as well, just to summarize EDR, this is essentially the respond and recover bit is post protection. This is going to look at shields that are going to enable you to be able to act after a ransomware attack has occurred or is in process if it's got past the endpoint protection. So this is just providing even better protection. We also then give you the ability to deploy this on one agent. So this isn't a multi-agent product, it's a single agent product under one customizable dashboard under the management console that gives you updates and alerts as to what's going on with your endpoints. And we also provide the layers of threat management and sandboxing capabilities all virtualized within the endpoint layers as well. All of this can as well be deployed through a central MSI or a GPO, and we provide protection for Windows devices, Windows servers. So those servers could be a range of different types of operating systems, and we also look after protect against attacks on Macs with some different layers of shielding there. And Linux machines as well. We also have our marketplace where we have integrations with some of the leading security providers in the market, and we provide plugins for an array of different types of SOC and SIEM solutions as well. So that's kind of summarizing what we do. I'm just going to go into a bit more detail now. So just to recap, incident response works with your existing antivirus. It will remove dormant viruses associated by virus identification footprints. We can remove them, and it will clean up after a ransomware attack. So very good at being able to identify sleeping viruses. We know there's some competitors of ours that do not remove sleeping viruses, dormant viruses, and so it would be a good test to use our product against your current AV to see if we're able to pick up and identify anything that they're not seeing. And then we've got the endpoint protection. So this is, as I said, this is a level up in terms of what you're getting from your current provider. We provide 9 layers of protection. We start off with web protection, so we have a database of over 30 billion URLs in our threat network, and we're able to identify and classify millions of pieces of threat data that we gather from the internet, and we can look at to see whether or not we've seen that type of URL used against a third-party data provider to see if that is a legitimate URL. And it's the same for IPs. We've got a record of over 3.5 billion IP addresses that we can cross-reference against. And if it comes up as flagged as bad, or the score is high enough, we will block that from having access. And then we've got a series of signatureless technology here. So this is going to be looking at the application layer. So this is honing in, zeroing in on the ability for us to be able to monitor and block malicious application behavior. So to give you an example, the anti-exploitation layer is going to look at the zero-day threat, the ability to be able to stop and block that from happening, especially if it's an unknown vulnerability, which there's 2 ways of being able to identify these things. One is through a researcher, where they can start applying the fix, and the other one is via a bad actor who's going to start exploiting and manipulating it. We have certain detection methods that enable us to be able to look at whether or not we think this is a vulnerability, and then we can stop that from happening. Payload analysis, we look at the billion files that we have in our threat network to see if we've seen that type of threat vector, and because it's matching based, we download several thousand heuristics to the endpoint to enable us to be able to make that instant recognition against that payload. And then we look at brute force protection. This is it's quite new for Malwarebytes, and it's a problem that has been plaguing IT service professionals for many years, and it is what happens when somebody gets through on an RDP attack. So typically a default port wouldn't have been changed, a default password would have been left on, enabling an attacker to use some sort of dictionary attack or credential stuffing method. Because we limit the amount of tries that attempt can have, minimizing that to maybe to 4 or 5 attempts, or after multiple attempts, block after 10 or 15 minutes, giving you different options there, we can stop a RDP attack from taking hold. So it's very effective. And then the 2 combined here is the ransomware mitigation and the machine learning. 6th generation machine learning, gathering thread data, being able to make assessments in milliseconds, and we combine that with our machine learning element that enables us to make that same determination based on behavior analysis. So if we've seen that type of threat before, if we have, we can stop that from being able to evolve. So as you can see, the endpoint product is highly evolved. These layers, they're all next generation, 6th generation machine learning combined with these different layers is going to give you an excellent layer of protection. Now, what happens, and it can, if a virus gets through all of these, and it can do, well then the situation is we can provide you with another layer of protection, which is the post-execution. So let's assume that a virus has managed to evade all of these layers, and we're now at a point where we've got an infection, or it's processing an infection. or a malicious intention. So our activity recorder, suspicious activity, is going to record over, well, actually, it will record all the changes that a suspicious file will make, or a suspicious process. We have over 500 rules that determine whether or not our virtual sandbox is able to make those determinations, because we actually upgrade the ability to be able to identify by putting more analysis around that vector, that attack vector. And because the EDR has a different type of analytics engine, it's able to process kind of more and look in depth into more of the payload that's, I guess, being exploited. So the suspicious activity monitor has over 500 different rules that we can check against to see whether or not that picture file that's trying to turn the Windows firewall off, that suspicious tick, we're going to start recording it. An Adobe Acrobat file trying to evade the sandbox, suspicious, we're going to record that. We're able to record all those changes, and it's done at the endpoint at a local level, so none of your data is put in the cloud. And we don't use any type of flash storage or imaging to do that. It's all done locally, individual file level. And then we can isolate it as well, because what we don't want to do, we don't want to have a file that's encrypting a particular process and then enable that to be able to spread to other files, processes, and networked endpoints. So we can do three things. We can isolate it from the desktop, isolate it from the network, and we can isolate it from its own process. And then that's based on Windows machines. With Mac and Linux, it's a little bit different. We don't provide the ransomware rollback, which is essentially clicking a button to roll all of those suspicious activity recordings that we've done back. With Macs, we can do the suspicious activity monitoring, give you flight recorder information of all of the process information that's going on there in a process graph, and we can isolate. We can isolate from the network, and we can isolate from the process, but we can't isolate from the desktop. That's something for the Windows machines. So just to summarize then, so we provide suspicious monitoring, endpoint isolation, and ransomware rollback for Windows. We provide for Mac and Linux suspicious activity monitoring, endpoint isolation, network and process level, but not desktop level, and we don't provide the rollback as well. And the linking engine is what binds all of the three products together, because it's looking at ransomware families and identifying what we know is bad. So that's it really. As you can see, all of these products are single agent based, can be managed through a single multi-tenancy console, and you have lots of options on reporting and notifications to keep you up to date on what's happening. Thanks for your time. Have a good day.